Muslims, migrants, immigrants. Oh, they're coming. They're coming. They're coming to invade Christian Europe. The Jews are controlling everything.
And that's why you should vote for me as Prime Minister. Holy sh**, that actually worked. Hello and welcome to the David Frankal Show every 2 weeks, yeah! So just before the April holidays my laptop broke, which kind of threw my video schedule off whack a little bit, and I'm now behind by a few weeks, but I have already discussed that in the Rambling Update video, which you can see in the description below, where I also talk about the new David's Life Clips episodes, 11 and 12, why they're there, why I didn't upload them before, and also I address the reasons I took down and re-uploaded some of the London September videos. All that's now done, and I'm now starting to edit the Paris December video, which might take me a while because there's just so much footage, but I'm going to split it into 2 main parts, plus a couple of separate videos about the Paris Metro, the TGV to Strasbourg, etc, etc. Anyway, during the April holidays I miserably failed to get all of my geography done, so I dedicated most of the first week back to catching up, and that's again why I didn't have much time to work on videos. Also, during the April holidays we went down to London to celebrate Seder night with the family. While we were in London we also had another overground race, and we also visited Camden Markets, Covent Garden and Ham House in Richmond. Then at the end of the April holiday my mum and I did a quick city break to Oslo using Ryanair tickets that we'd snapped up on sale, which seemed pretty cheap at the time but came with 3 major drawbacks. One, we originally booked for all 4 of us to go, but Dad and Nam actually managed to get tickets to the Manchester Derby at the last minute and decided to do that instead of the flight. So even though we knew they were not doing it more than 48 hours in advance, Ryanair still wouldn't let us cancel the tickets. 2, the airport that was advertised to us as Oslo Torp, as it turns out, is nowhere near Oslo at all and isn't even called Oslo Torp, it's actually called Torp Sandefjord. On the upside, there was a convenient NSB train service that went right from Torp Airport all the way to Oslo Central in only an hour and a half, which is actually pretty impressive considering that it's over 100 kilometres away. On the downside, the train tickets costed us nearly as much as the plane tickets. And third of all, Ryanair, the absolute scumbags, have now introduced this new policy where if you book as a group, you now have to pay extra for the privilege of sitting next to each other on the plane. So my mum and I checked in, we got seated at opposite ends of the plane, and using the website you can change your seats to sit together, but it will cost you £7+ per person each way, so we decided f*** that and just sat at opposite ends of the plane and read magazines. But apart from all that and the weather being a bit rubbish for the last 2 days, I would say the trip was an overwhelmingly positive experience. The first day we were there, Friday, the weather was really nice. It got worse later on, but it was very nice on the first day. The city in general was very clean, very modern, public transport obviously very reliable, and the food was very nice, although very expensive. I think our main issue with visiting the city was because we went in April, which, as far as Oslo is concerned, is part of the winter months, and during that time most of the museums and attractions close at 4 or 5 PM, so we did kind of struggle to find things to do in the evening. And as a whole, it's a relatively small city, so I think 3 days was kind of the optimum amount of time to stay there. I think had we stayed more than 3 days, we probably would have started running out of things to do, but we had just enough time to do just the right amount of things, including taking this really cheesy picture in front of the screen, because I'm so funny and original. Also, Naomi and I visited the Manchester Cat Cafe. Unfortunately, most of the cats were asleep. Anyway, it's now been exactly 6 months since the filming of the David Frankal Show 70. Briefly skipping over the fact that this is episode 76, so I should have uploaded twice the number of David Frankal Show episodes since then. We finally get to find out the results of Place Your Bets, the game that I played with Ellie, Hadassah and Nathan, who went by Kim at the time. So let's find out who won. Just to remind you, the aim of the game was to predict what would happen in 6 months' time. Question 1. Who is the Prime Minister of the UK? The pot was £7,000. Ellie and Hadassah both guessed that it would still be Theresa May, so they win £3,500 each. The money's not real, by the way. I guessed it would be Jeremy Corbyn, so I didn't get anything. and Nathan guessed that it would be a potted plant. Now, just a disclaimer, this was actually filmed on Saturday, the day before this was hopefully uploaded, so technically it's been 1 day off 6 months. So everything is correct at the time of filming, and Theresa May could still be replaced with a potted plant within the next 24 hours, however, I think that is unlikely. Question 2. Who is the President of the United States? The pot was £4,000. Hadassah and I both guessed that it would still be Donald Trump, so we both win £2,000. Ellie guessed that it would be Mike Pence, and Nathan guessed that it would be, you guessed it, another potted plant. Question 3. Which country / news organisation / celebrity is Trump currently at war with? Ellie was probably the closest, guessing North Korea. I guessed Jennifer Lawrence for some reason, I don't know. Nathan guessed Justin Bieber, and Hadassah guessed the gays. And I mean, he doesn't like gay people, but it's not really a particular news story right now, so I think it's safe to say nobody won that one. The answer would in fact have been the Assad regime, which we almost started World War III over just last weekend. Just a side note, I don't really think we're ready for World War III with our current politics and leadership and kind of lack of certainty. I think now would definitely not be, not that there's ever a good time for World War III and, you know, impending nuclear, mutually assured destruction, but now is definitely not the time. Question 4. What do we know about Brexit? The pot was £11,000. I optimistically guessed that we would have decided somewhat on a Norway-style soft Brexit model, which would have provided, you know, some clarity. So I win nothing. Ellie guessed that we would maybe start thinking about talking about leaving the EU or whatever. Despite Andrew Adonis's Twitter rants, I think we are firmly past that stage. Nathan guessed nothing at all, which is kind of true, but I think Hadassah probably wins that round with just enough to aggravate the public, which, given the recent developments on Northern Ireland, is pretty apt. Question 5. Who's on strike this month? The total pot was £11,000. Ellie guessed junior doctors, which actually we haven't heard about for a while, so no. Nathan guessed all of the potted plants from the previous answers, which, again, as of the time of filming, no world leaders have been replaced with potted plants yet. Hadassah guessed that she would be on strike from being gay, which, given that the fact that she is now in a straight relationship, I guess that counts. And I guessed all the trains, which would have been a pretty reliable answer, except that this month has actually been pretty quiet in terms of rail strikes in the UK. Luckily for me, I didn't specify the UK, and given that France is currently being decimated by rail strikes, I guess that counts. So that's £5,500 to each of us. So that gives us the final scores. Ellie with £3,500, me with £7,500, Nathan with £0, and Hadassah with £22,000. So I think there's a pretty clear winner there. Speaking of clear winners, Orbán has now won his 3rd term as Prime Minister of Hungary, as well as a supermajority of seats in the Hungarian Parliament, after running a campaign that was essentially entirely based on anti-immigrant rhetoric and anti-Semitic smears. Or to put it more plainly, he's a f***ing racist dick. But was it a fair election? No. My mum, who is eligible to vote by post, never received her voting papers, something which apparently happened to several Hungarian citizens living in the UK. Furthermore, those who voted at the embassy in London found that the embassy was desperately understaffed, leading to mile-long queues. And when the voting closed at 7 PM, the embassy closed, so everybody who was still caught outside queuing didn't get to vote. Despite the fact that in polling stations in Hungary, people who were caught queuing after 7 PM were still allowed to vote. Furthermore, in several constituencies where opposition parties pulled out their candidates in order to prevent the spoiler effects, many of those candidates were not removed in time from the ballots, meaning that many votes against Fidesz were actually rendered invalid. Not that Orbán really needed to cheat, because he has popular support in Hungary, for a number of reasons. And whilst it's easy to just conclude, oh yeah, all Hungarians are racist, I think that's a bit of an unfair simplification. Some of the Fidesz voters are obviously racists, and more so with Jobbik, the biggest opposition party, which was even further right. But I think a lot of the votes for Fidesz simply came from people in the poorer rural areas of Hungary who've simply been fed up of kind of economic stagnation and unemployment and social problems, which they've been kind of told to blame on Europe and on immigration. Many of these people's main sources of information are the media, which is heavily state-influenced. Furthermore, the opposition to Fidesz is broken and divided, and so basically any vote against Fidesz is simply a vote for a smaller majority and therefore less stability. So many of the people who vote Fidesz simply are voting for a more stable government, which they see as being better. So it's quite a difficult situation to unpack, to be honest, and although for me the election results are deeply disappointing, they are by no means surprising. Also, Brexit is going really well, to the surprise of nobody whatsoever. It turns out that the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland might present a little bit of a problem in Brexit negotiations. Also, the UK seems to be having a slight problem with the Windrush Migrants, specifically about 57,000 of them who arrived and have lived in the UK since they arrived, but aren't actually UK nationals. And this hit the news because it was reported that many of them had been deported in error, and those who are still in the UK are currently living in fear of being deported. So my question to the Home Office, who are in the process of deporting people who've lived in the UK for decades, what is the point? What do we gain from deporting people who have contributed to our society? How does the UK benefit from deporting people? And also, if the UK is having this much problem with 57,000 Windrush migrants, shudder to think how on earth we're going to manage to deal with the 3 million EU residents currently living in the UK once Brexit is finished, if ever. It is just infuriating. There's no strategy, no direction, no clarity, no nothing. I have no idea what scandal is going to come out from the government next. It could be literally anything. Do they have any idea what they're doing? Not that Jeremy Corbyn is much better, you know, he's currently mired in anti-Semitism scandals, which he's kind of making worse with each new thing that comes about. You know, it could be justified separately, but when you've got a whole line of them, 5 different gaffes in the space of 2 weeks, it's becoming more and more difficult for Corbynites to defend him, you know. Oh look, I'm in the middle of an anti-Semitism scandal. I know, I'm going to do something else that could be possibly seen as anti-Semitic, like, you know, jumping to conclusions about what's going on in Israel, or going to some extremist Jewish Seder party. Brilliant! But anyway, back to the channel. So yes, YouTube update, thingamajig, right. As I said, right now I'm working on the Paris videos, which include some train spotting episodes in Paris. Then there's Poland, London February, London April, and Oslo, and hopefully all of that will be done before we next go somewhere, so that I'll finally not be behind. As I mentioned in the Rambling Update video, Duncan and I unfortunately missed an important window to try and get those 2 documentaries filmed, so that's now going to have to wait until he's finished his GCSEs, so that'll be end of June. That being said, I still have the Manchester documentary, which is now running many, many months late, so I probably wouldn't have uploaded them that soon anyway. For any of you wondering about my Instagram, I've kind of come to the conclusion that using it as a place to just upload all my pictures in bulk doesn't really work, so I'm going to try and find a new place to upload pictures in bulk. Then I will use my Instagram for more kind of highlight pictures and upload more frequent stuff to it, rather than uploading a lot of pictures in short bursts. And I will tell you what I'm going to do when I decide what to do. Also, yes, train news. I promised to do one of those over the April holidays, and then obviously I didn't, so I'm now in a situation where I have to do it during term time, which is something I've been trying to avoid, but you know, what can you do? So I'm going to try and get one done over the next few weeks. I'm giving myself 2 weeks to do it instead of 1 week, so that hopefully I'll get it edited in time and won't trail by a few days. So I'm going to give a rough estimate of the 6th of May, hopefully, for that, and then the next David Frankal Show will be the one after that. So I'm not going to do a train news over the May half term, so the next train news after this upcoming one will then be in late July. I know that's not anywhere near the number I've promised to do, but if I want to keep up with 4 A-level subjects, possibly doing an EPQ and also doing all the other video projects that I'm working on, it's really the most I can do right now. So, no explanations with Ellie this week. We've actually run out, so we've got to film some more at some point. We do have a train spot of the week this week though, and it is a very rare one. It is a cross-country HST at Manchester Piccadilly, and then that same cross-country HST set passing Bramall. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe. Hello and welcome to the... Oh, not again. Oh cool, I can go over there now. Yay. Well, this is nice. And I'm stuck.